UFC President Dana White continues to delegitimize lightweight champion Islam Makhachev. He made a recent appearance on the Flagrant podcast where he continued to double down on the statement that Jon Jones is pound for pound #1 over Islam Makhachev, and it's not even an argument. Anybody saying otherwise is an idiot and doesn't know what they're talking about. I've covered this topic recently with his post-fight presser after UFC 302. But I'm seeing these clips and I'm like, you know what? This guy is an absolute bullshit artist. And I know exactly why he's doing this. And he also finally let loose why he was not there to wrap the belt around Francis Ngannou, which I thought was very interesting as well. We're going to take a look at a couple clips from this podcast. But to sit there and claim that there's no possible way to rank Islam Makhachev pound for pound #1 over Jon Jones is one of the most ridiculous statements in MMA history. And it goes to show that Dana White has no fucking clue what pound for pound even means. This guy has no clue. He's shown time and time again. I know some people are going to say, Joey, he was buying the UFC before you were out of your dad's nutsack, and he's been watching the sport longer than you've been alive, and blah, 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 so on and so forth. Whatever you want to say, you know, any comments of that nature. This guy does not know what pound for pound is. We're going to break down the difference, because apparently Dana White, the UFC president, doesn't know because he's too busy being obsessed with PowerSlap. By the way, we're going to quickly expose him for his PowerSlap comments as well. Apparently this guy doesn't know the difference between pound for pound and GOAT. He does not know the difference. So let's start right away. I want to expose this guy real quick about PowerSlap. Some comments he made for PowerSlap were some of the most embarrassing comments I've seen to date. And I'm thinking about in the future making a video kind of exposing Dana White on some of these ridiculous statements about analytics, you know, that have to do with PowerSlap. If that's something you want to see in the future, please let me know down in the comments. You know, if that's something you want, I will make it. But he brings up PowerSlap because he has to shoehorn PowerSlap into every conversation ever, and watch them start making fun of him to his face by pulling up his PowerSlap cheat sheet. Watch this.
What I fucking love to do. It's the same thing with PowerSlap. This thing got shit on. This thing's been around for 15 months. It's a $750 million business.
Yeah,
and it fucking crushes it.
Yeah. We have all that.
It fucking
That's the cheat sheet that Dana White brings with him everywhere that has like statements about the PowerSlap success.
I knew it was going to come up.
So I said that. You brought it up. I didn't bring it up.
I literally just got off a fucking call with one of the networks talking about it. But
yes.
I just got off a call with one of the networks talking about, was it TBS, the one that dropped you so you could head over to live and exclusively and free on Rumble?
It fucking
a pretty good network.
Absolutely fucking dominates social media.
So here's the thing about this is,
have you ever heard someone who has something successful so often try to convince you of its success? It's just crazy to me. But that's not even the worst part. Let's skip ahead just slightly. We're only going to cover the PowerSlap for a little bit. We're going to get into the Islam Makhachev discussion. But listen to this. I mean, this is some ridiculous remarks. And it takes 1 minute of research to easily debunk these demonstrably false lies by Dana White.
This thing absolutely dominates. We have more followers than every single professional sport. Every professional sports team, we have more followers than them. In 15 months.
Wow. More than like Real Madrid or like these soccer teams?
I don't know about the soccer teams, but I would say yes. Yeah. Every fucking sports team, we have more followers. Soccer's so I would say yes.
Look at him laughing at him. Look at them laughing at him to his face. I would say yes. I would say yes. Oh, so you don't know. So I was like, you know what? Let me spend 60 seconds of time and let me compare PowerSlap to maybe Manchester United. Let's take a look. Let's go to YouTube. Oh, YouTube, 2.58 million subscribers. Okay, let's look at Manchester United. 9.02 million subscribers. So, okay, can't be that one. Can't possibly be that one. But maybe he's talking about TikTok. Let's look at PowerSlap on TikTok. 4.6 million followers. Manchester United, 26 million followers. Maybe he's talking about Twitter. 40.3 thousand followers on Twitter. Yeah, that's crazy. That's a smashing success. Manchester United, 37.7 million. And I was thinking, you know what? Let me compare it to some of these other Twitter accounts. Oh, let's look at NASCAR. Oh, NASCAR's got 3.6 million. You know, let's look at something a little bit smaller than NASCAR. Let's look at Clay Guida and the motherfucking boys. 130K followers for Clay Guida and the boys. compared to PowerSlap 40K. By the way, a revelation that I found out when I was doing this research, I was looking at PowerSlap's YouTube account. And I'm like, wait a second, these views look way better than I've ever seen. Is PowerSlap growing? 76K, 78, 275, 71, 131. I'm not going to break it down in this video. If you guys want a dedicated video on something like this, let me know down in the comments. They're buying views. They are buying views. And the way you can tell is when you see like for example, this one, 275. It's 275,000 views. It has something like 1,200 likes and like 180 comments. Keep in mind, I get more comments than that on like a 5 to 10,000 view video, okay? And there's countless examples. I'm not going to, spend 10 minutes going through that in this video. But that tells me someone working for Dana White, that, Dana White isn't a guy that you can bring bad news to. So instead, what you have to do is buy views for his YouTube channel so you can then claim a smashing success. But that's besides the point. We're going to move on to some of the comments that he made about Jon Jones being pound for, and he made some ridiculous comments in this video. I literally could not believe this. But we're going to jump right ahead. You know what? Before we do that, let's jump over to here. I forgot I was going to show this. Just to recap you on the comments that he made recently at the UFC 302 post-fight presser. I'm not going to react to these a whole lot because I've already covered these in a previous video. I will link it down in the description. But let's just get a quick recap on what he said at the UFC 302 post-fight presser.
Broadcast called Islam the perfect lightweight, and they're just the size, his style of fighting, just his fight IQ. I'm curious, where do you rank him in this pantheon of lightweights that we've seen
So just keep in mind, this guy never asked about Jon Jones. He just said, where do you rank him at all-time lightweights?
over the years?
Yeah, I think he's, one of the greatest of all time. I think he's incredible. I don't think he's the pound-for-pound best fighter in the world. For anybody to call
No one fucking asked you, Baldy.
Islam the pound-for-pound best fighter in the world when Jon Jones is still fucking fighting.
I'm sorry, I have to jump in. When Jon Jones is still fighting, aka one fight in the last 4 fucking years.
Is nuts and shouldn't be ranking in the pound-for-pound or doing any of the fucking rankings ever, if that's what you really think. Jon Jones has never lost a fight ever. He's fought all the baddest dudes in the world. And then when you think about what pound-for-pound rankings really mean, he moved it up to heavyweight and destroyed the best guy in the world.
Okay. I'm not gonna go too hard against him right now because we're gonna look at the Flagrant clip in a second. But he got a little bit of pushback here. And I highlighted this in my video the other day. Again, I'll link that video down in the description. But a media member pushed back. And Dana White bullshitted his way out of it. And obviously the media member isn't going to just sit there and argue with him. But let's listen to that as well.
Just to go back to Islam, he's now on a 14-fight winning streak, which is the third longest in history behind Anderson Silva
By the way, this is Mike Bond. Shout out to Mike Bond, who works for MMA Junkie.
and Usman. What would it take for him to surpass Jon Jones in your mind for that pound-for-pound number one?
I mean, when you think about what pound-for-pound really means, right?
When you think about what it means, we're going to break down what it means in a second.
He fought Volkanovski, who's a weight class lower than him. Jon Jones beat everybody at light heavyweight, then beat the best heavyweight in the division like it was nothing at a higher weight class.
So,
Jon Jones is absolutely positively the pound-for-pound best fighter in the world, probably the greatest fighter of all time in
Maybe the second statement is true, but no, not the first statement. But again, we're going to get to this.
any sport. When you talk about who's the baddest dude in the world, you put two guys in a room and who walks out, Jon Jones walks out of the fucking room every time. No question about it.
yeah. And in no way trying to diminish Jon's accomplishments, but he's
But
but he's fought once in the last however many years. Islam's fighting multiple times a year, defending. So at what point does activity outweigh?
Look, he's heated right here. Easy pushback. Well, he hasn't been active. He hasn't been fighting.
Jon's
beautiful. I like that you asked that question. Let's talk about activity. 3 years off. Nobody, not even Ali. Nobody's ever come from 3 years off and looked the same. Jon Jones walked through the heavyweight, the number one guy in the heavyweight division, like it was nothing, with 3 years off. Yeah, Jon Jones is the best ever. Ever. And when I say ever, I mean in any combat sport. He's the best ever. You throw Jon Jones in a room with anybody, Jon Jones walks out of the room.
Jon's saying he's fighting Stipe November 9th in New York.
All right, so there you go. I'm old enough to remember when Dana White was alluding to Jon Jones ducking Francis Ngannou. Jon Jones was going to move down to middleweight because he was going to duck Francis Ngannou. Oh, that was during contract negotiations. I forgot about that. So let's get to the actual podcast here, because he makes similar claims here about Jon Jones and Islam Makhachev, and this shit really grinds my gears. because there's already plenty of people going out of their way to try to delegitimize Islam Makhachev. And here we go. We have the UFC president, Dana White, shitting on one of his, if not the best champion in his organization, coming off a win on a card that was lackluster, saving the entire event by having a great main event and digging deep and facing a little bit of adversity and finding a 5th round finish. But instead of cheering him on, this is what you got to say about him.
Now, the greatest fighter to ever live, ever, is fucking Jon Jones. When you look at Jon Jones has never lost a fight.
UFC and boxing, or just UFC?
Ever.
Wow.
Because when you really think about fighting, put 2 guys in a room and who fucking comes out?
I'm so tired of hearing him say this. And he makes a ridiculous claim towards the end of this. He starts bringing up Jon Jones's dogs to support the claim that he's pound for pound #1. You put 2 guys in a room. Well, why are you putting him in a room with Grandpa Stipe Miocic? Why are you making us wait 2 years to see him fight Stipe Miocic? Put him in a room with Tom Aspinall. That's what the fans want to see. That's what the fans want to see. And we're going to break down why I believe Dana's getting so defensive of Jon Jones here in a second. But let's listen to the rest of it.
Jon Jones walks out of that fucking room every time. And, you know, it's almost like, you know, when you see Jon on camera, and if you were in here talking to Jon Jones, it's almost uncomfortable for him to do this shit. But Jon Jones beats the fuck out of people, right? And when you talk about truly right now, in Islam, I love you, Islam, and everything, the fact that Jon Jones is #2 on the pound for pound list is fucking, it just goes to show how fucking stupid the media votes on that.
Yeah.
Then it just goes to show you that they have no fucking idea.
It goes to show that Dana White has no fucking idea. This dumb motherfucker doesn't know the difference between pound for pound and GOAT status. There's more to this. There's more to this. I'm going to get to it in a second. Let me define the difference between pound for pound and GOAT status. GOAT status. How do you determine GOAT status? You take the sum of one's career, you know, accolades with titles and title defenses, level of opposition, performances. You take the sum of their career, and then you determine where they fit into the GOAT status, greatest of all time. Doesn't matter if it was 5 years ago. Doesn't matter if it was 10 years ago. Doesn't matter if it was 15 years ago. You can still be a GOAT. That's why GSP is a GOAT. That's why Anderson Silva is a GOAT. You take the sum of their resume, their career, title defenses, performances, so on and so forth, level of opposition, and you combine that together. If you take that argument, Jon Jones is undoubtedly the GOAT. There's no doubt about that. Jon Jones has the best resume. But pound for pound is more fluid than that. It has to do with recent activity more than anything. Obviously, you have to take into account past performances, even if they're years ago, but it updates on a yearly basis. It's not, I mean, not necessarily just a yearly basis, but there can be 2 guys kind of going head to head for it. But the point I'm trying to make here is pound for pound isn't determined in 2015. Pound for pound isn't determined in 2010. That's just not what it is. Jon Jones, I broke this down in my video the other day. Since 2020, since February 2020, he's 2-0 with 0 pound for pound wins. His only win is against Cyril Gane, who, at the time was 11-1 on a 1-fight win streak against Tai Tuivasa. Since February 2020, Islam Makhachev's 8-0 with 7 finishes. He beat Alexander Volkanovski not most recently, before Dustin Poirier, who at the time was ranked #2. Before that, he beat Alexander Volkanovski, who was ranked #1. Before that, he beat Charles Oliveira, who was ranked #3. All pound for pound rankings. Cyril Gane was not ranked in the pound for pound. Okay. On top of that, in the first Volk fight, Volk was on a 22-fight win streak. The Charles Oliveira fight, Oliveira was on an 11-fight win streak. You can't rank Jon Jones as pound for pound #1 by getting into a time machine and pulling an Uncle Rico. Coach would have put me in 4th quarter. We would have took states. How much you want to bet I could throw a pigskin over those mountains? Jon Jones's recent resume does not indicate right now that he is a pound for pound fighter. You have to take into account recent activity, and then the pound for pound argument is if you size the fighter up, you know, they still had the same skills. You sized them up to be able to compete against each other. Who would win? Islam Makhachev with his recent activity. We don't know how good Jon Jones is right now. He hasn't fought in damn near 2 years, and he's fought once in the last 4, or twice in the last 4. So to say he's the pound for pound, and then if you really want to go further back, I mean, again, look at Islam's resume here. He just beat Dustin Poirier. Volkanovski right here, ranked pound for pound number 2. Volkanovski here, ranked pound for pound number 1, 22 fight win streak. You look at Charles Oliveira, 11 fight win streak, pound for pound number 3, and he's finishing these dudes. He's finishing these dudes. He didn't finish Volkanovski in the one fight, but you go and look at Jon Jones right here. This is Ciryl Gane. I think I went from Jon Jones to Ciryl Gane. Here's Jon Jones. Look at his recent resume. Okay, Ciryl Gane. Again, I already went through that. Not pound for pound, 11-1. Before that, went life and death with Dominic Reyes. A lot of people would argue that Jon Jones lost this fight. Went life and death with Thiago Santos. A lot of people would argue that he lost this fight. Before that, a win over Anthony Smith. Before that, dominated Alexander Gustafsson. The only good win in the last few years really is that Ciryl Gane win, which he brings up. And there's more to this podcast that we're going to look at, but this guy's a dumb motherfucker. Oh, the media doesn't know what they're doing, ranking Islam number 1 pound for pound. Well, that's like, okay, are we still going to rank GSP pound for pound number 1? Oh, well, he came up to middleweight and he won the title. He has this long win streak. No, we're not, because he hasn't fought in many years. He's one of the GOATs, but he's not pound for pound. Dude has no idea what pound for pound versus GOAT is. Let's listen to some more.
They know nothing about this fucking sport.
Apparently he knows nothing about the fucking sport.
Jon Jones has never lost a fight ever. And when you talk about what it really means to be pound for pound, Volkanovski moved up, and it was a very fucking close fight the first time.
First off, it wasn't that close. It wasn't that close. And Volkanovski was pound for pound number 1, and you were promoting the fight as, oh, winner of this is for the pound for pound number 1 spot. Okay.
Jon Jones moved up and absolutely
Yeah.
fucking decimated the greatest heavyweight that was out there right now.
The greatest heavyweight that was out there right now, I think that would be Francis Ngannou, who you refuse to give any concessions to in a contract negotiation, so we never got to see that fight. But a year prior, 2 years prior, you were acting like Jon Jones was terrified of Ngannou.
Doesn't go for that fucking armbar. He beats Francis Ngannou and becomes the heavyweight champion.
He finally says it out loud. This is why Dana White stormed out when Ciryl Gane lost to Francis Ngannou. There was a whole contract negotiations going on behind the scenes. Dana was pissed at Francis Ngannou, was praying that he would lose, and he thought Ciryl Gane just won this fight with this takedown. Went for that armbar, loses the fight. Dana White stormed out of the arena, no doubt. I'm glad he finally admits it. It's a couple years later, but he finally admits it. Let's listen to a little bit more.
Jon Jones walked through him like it was fucking nothing.
Oh no, 11-1, Ciryl Gane. Barely any MMA experience. Volkanovski, 22 fight win streak. Charles Oliveira, 11 fight win streak, finishing everyone under the sun.
And when you really think about what pound for pound means,
Yeah.
Jon Jones is the pound for pound best.
According to what? You're jumping in a time machine to justify this.
When you watch the video of him and Cormier, and they don't know that.
This is. I'm going to leave this in here because I could not believe. He started saying, Jon Jones is so bad, he's ready to kill someone and this and that. Listen to this shit. Starts bringing up his dogs. Starts bringing up Jon Jones's German Shepherds to justify pound for pound status.
That they're live and being filmed.
Oh, my God.
And Cormier says, I had to come over there and spit in your fucking face right now. And Jon Jones says, I would fucking kill you. I'm not saying I would fucking kill you. Jon Jones has like German Shepherd dogs that that do all the attack shit, shoots guns. Jon Jones has a very fucking dark side to him, right? And when you talk about who the baddest motherfucker in the world is,
I like how your example of how bad he is.
you put
his two dogs.
Look at him laughing in his face. Look, Dana's pissed. Yeah, he's got 2 fucking German Shepherds. Of course he's pound for pound. He shoots guns. What a badass. I mean, seriously, does this get any more laughable? He has 2 German Shepherds. That's why he's pound for pound over Islam Makhachev. Listen, guys. Dana White is off his rocker. Dana White is checked out. Dana White is too obsessed with PowerSlap rather than actually paying attention to the sport. And he can't admit that Islam Makhachev is pound for pound number 1 over Jon Jones. So he has to blame the media, the big bad MMA media. And I hate the MMA media more than anyone. The big bad MMA media doesn't know how to rank anyone. I'll explain to you why Dana White is being so dramatic and so adamant about the pound for pound rankings. And we're done listening to this podcast. The reason that Dana White is acting like this is because we're getting closer and closer to Jon Jones versus Stipe Miocic. He has seen the fan backlash off of not wanting to see Jon Jones versus old-ass Stipe Miocic, who's been answering phones at the fire department, who got folded like a lawn chair 3 years ago against Francis Ngannou. He's seen the backlash, and what he's seeing when he sees this backlash, he's seeing dollar bills go out the window. Because at the end of the day, if the hardcore MMA community is hyped about a fight, it helps promote the fight, and then in turn puts money in their pocket. And if people are so down on this fight, people are constantly shitting on this fight. People are saying Jon Jones is washed up, or Jon Jones, is ducking Tom Aspinall. And I haven't even been one to say that. I know why they're doing this. They want this fight because they think it'll make the most money. But at the end of the day, Dana White has seen this backlash. And that's why he is so adamant that there's no possible way Islam Makhachev could be pound for pound #1 over Jon Jones. I'll tell you right now, there is no doubt that Islam Makhachev is pound for pound #1 over Jon Jones. When you look at their recent resume, you can't go back in time to justify today's pound for pound rankings. You can include it, but if you don't have any recent history, and by the way, let's actually look at one more thing. I forgot I had this up. I didn't want to make the video too long, but let's look at this. Let's look at what Jon Jones recently said about this. Jon Jones said, so let me get this straight. You go through an absolute dogfight and pull off a last-minute submission, and that's what makes you the best? I guess getting injured means you suddenly lost all that skill. Just curious. Dude's criticizing Islam for having a somewhat competitive fight against Dustin Poirier. Dogfight? I think not. John, what about your dogfight with Dominic Reyes? What about your dogfight with Thiago Santos? What about that? What about those fights where you arguably could have lost both of them? What about those? And let's look at what Islam Makhachev posted on Instagram. This will be the last thing we look at. He posted this where he's calling out all the wins since 2021 where Jon Jones only has the one win against Cyril Gane. So the argument isn't even close, guys. It isn't even close. Jon Jones is not pound for pound #1. Could he regain that status? Yes, but not a win over old-ass Stipe Miocic, I'll tell you that much. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And thank you so much for watching.